Okay, I propose we're going to start. Yeah. So good morning, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Dirk Krol. I'm the Executive Director of Water Europe, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to this edition of Water Projects Europe on a community of practice for research and innovation to achieve a water smart society. Today's edition is co-organized between Water Europe and PathoCERT, and also involves the project Ultimate and Water Mining, all projects stemming from Horizon 2020. Water Projects Europe is a Water Europe event designed to learn and build, to learn from and build on the experience of innovative projects working on similar topics. Water Projects Europe aims at clustering water-related projects and to allow them to interact mutually, build on the respective experience, and support policy development and stimulate the sustainability of innovations. Today's theme, which is the community of practices, or COPs. COPs are defined as social learning systems that bring together people who share a concern or a passion for something they do and learn how to do it better as they act regularly. Yeah. So what do we do with the events of Water Projects? We really take the outcome of project results and either try to bring them to the market where they can be applied, or bring them, feed them into the policy process. So at European level, we can update, I would say, European policy shaping and implementation with the outcomes of European projects. So with this brief welcome, I leave you in the capable hands of my colleagues Andrea Rubini and Anca Padoraro, who will guide you to the rest of the event. I wish you a very interesting event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dirk. Thanks for being today at Water Project Europe on community of practice. I will just give you, a quick pick of the event of today, which is made of basically 4 main sessions. We have the welcome introduction, and Dirk started. So the welcome introduction will include also setting the scene, about the role of COPs in the green and digital transformation of Europe. We are going to have an initial poll, just to get familiar with one another and to know who is looking at our event today. Then we're going to have the presentation of the 3 projects. As Dirk anticipated, we have PathoCERT. This is organized in collaboration under the umbrella of the PathoCERT project. And then we are going to have 2 projects which belong to the same corporate proposal of Horizon 2020, which is building a water smart economy and society, and namely the Ultimate project and water mining. Then we have a session when we really enter into the deep of the community of practice, their role in the project, their role in the society, what they can bring in terms of added value to the research and innovation, how to sustain such research and innovation. And of course, we're going to have the presentation of the peculiarities of the community of practice of the 3 projects, and this will be followed by a panel discussion. We're going to have a number of very interesting and important speakers with us. Then we're going to have the closing. The closing will include, of course, the takeaway and another final poll for the audience and the speaker. So now, let's set the scene. Let's say, what is the role of the community of practice in the green and digital transition of Europe? And to this end, I would like to ask Dimitra Ioannidou from CSCP to give us her insights on this topic. And Dimitra, you are welcome to take the floor.
Thank you very much, Andrea. A warm welcome to all of you from my side as well. It is a great pleasure to be here today with all of you and to participate at this event. So let me start by saying that we are constantly faced with different climate-related challenges in our work. So natural disasters, resource scarcity, water insecurity, just to name a few. These challenges we face are complex puzzles, and like all puzzles, they require very different approaches, effective collaboration and communication, as well as knowledge exchange in order to solve them. So think of solving a jigsaw puzzle. You have a picture that you're aiming to put back together, and you also have the scattered pieces. Now, depending on the picture you might try to get out, you might try different things first. So you might want to start from the edges, or you might recognize a very prominent feature that you want to try and recreate first. So the different puzzles, they need different approaches and perspectives to be solved. So similarly, a community of practice might differ depending on the challenge that it aims to address, the local context and the different determinants, as we'll hear later on during the very interesting presentations. But what catalyzes efficient problem solving, what puts all the puzzle pieces back together, is that all relevant stakeholder groups, their voices and their perspectives are represented within the community of practice. We cannot have the full pictures if we have some of the pieces missing. Communities of practice is actually a very flexible stakeholder engagement format that can be adjusted to very specific needs. So the members of the communities of practice, they come together to address a specific challenge, and what unites them is the vision that they share, but also the common understanding that they build towards the challenge in question. So it's not just the common vision that makes actually the communities of practice so special, but true to the word, community of practice, members actually build a very strong sense of connection and community through their continuous and voluntary engagement in the co-development of the solutions. The members exchange their stories, they share their expertise, they follow the project developments from beginning to end. And in short, they see the actual added value of belonging to this community, of coming together and connecting to others, and making the necessary interlinkages to actually bring solutions forward. Now, looking at the projects that we are going to be discussing today, first we have PathoCERT, which is a project that aims to help first responders detect waterborne pathogens. Then we have the Ultimate project that aims to valorize resources within the water cycle. And last but not least, we have the water mining project that aims to ensure access to clean water and sanitation. Now, these projects, they aim to tackle very diverse challenges, and at first glance, they don't really seem to have all that much in common, apart maybe from the fact that they are all about water. But it's actually way more than that. So looking more closely, one can also see that all projects, they set actually very ambitious goals, and they develop very innovative water technologies and seek to provide solutions to very complex and pressing challenges. Additionally, though, what they also have in common is that they have all managed to set up very successful communities of practice, proving that actually the communities of practice are very flexible, and it's a very adjustable tool that can work in highly diversified settings. So, and it is precisely through this framework, through the framework of the communities of practice and the unique features, that end users and other stakeholders have the possibility to actually become an active part of the process. They give and receive feedback, they co-create and tailor the solutions, and this allows for the very important diffusion of knowledge, and which of course works towards the increased technology acceptance. And it also plays a very active role if you want the communities of practice also drive to a very large extent the very much needed green and digital transition. So without further ado, let's take a look at the project's communities of practice and what they're all about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dimitra. Now we have time for a very short poll, so we know, also about our audience. My colleague Gaia will launch it. Gaia, please, can you open the first slides of the Mentimeter? So point your mobile on the QR code. Please join them in the poll. I think that we can go with the first slide.
So I would say let's break the ice, and please stop exactly on the screen how you're feeling today, especially because today is also Valentine's Day.
I think that we can go to additional results.
Yes, so there are quite more people happier than expected. So that's a really good sign. There's a lot of good energy today here. So I would say we proceed.
We couldn't see the slide with the results.
It's here on the screen where there's the numbers and the dots.
Okay, great. So let's go now. So we did all the energy. Let's go for the next poll.
Let's channel it. So where are you connecting from?
Wow. Possible to summarize the outcomes. Then we go to the results and then to the last slide.
Yes, so there are a little bit from everywhere. A lot of inputs. And
well, yes, it seems that we have participants from all over Europe and Africa.
And beyond.
It's nice that it's one response. I'm connecting through internet. It's really nice. So it's like a VPN.
And let's see how diversified these audiences.
Interesting. I mean, I find, living, in research and innovation projects, I find this participation quite balanced. So I think that we can close our poll.
Yes, thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And now enter into the project presentations. And the first project will be, of course, PathoCERT to be presented. And then it will be Ultimate and then the water mining. I recommend the speakers, really to keep the time. We already, behind the schedule. So please, as much as concise as possible. So I'd like to leave the floor and ask Dimitra to start speaking on behalf of the PathoCERT project. You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, the PathoCERT project, or the full name, the Pathogen Contamination Emergency Response Technologies. It's a research and innovation project that started in September 2020 and is running until the end of February 2024. So we still have a good year to go. It is a Horizon 2020 project, and the total amount that was rewarded was 7 million. And the project is coordinated by KIOS, the Center of Excellence of the University of Cyprus, and PathoCERT brings together 23 partners across 10 different countries, including universities, research organizations, small and medium-sized enterprises, first responders, and water utility operators. So what the project is aiming to do, it's actually about researching and developing technologies to help for the pathogen contamination emergency response. So the project aims to actually increase the operational capacities of first responders and to strengthen the coordination of the first responders, to help them be very rapid and accurate in the detection of pathogens, and of course improve their situational awareness and their ability to mitigate emergency response that involve waterborne pathogens. So the main achievements of the project, the PathoCERT project is actually developing a very diverse set of tools and technologies to bring to the first responders. But not only that. So you will see here we have a few of the technologies. Of course, there are more than that, and we'll see that in a bit. Some of them are wearable sensors that first responders can actually use on the field. They span to sensors for quality control, but they're also the technologies also include tools for analyzing contamination events and data from satellites and social media, or a decision support system, for example, for contamination of and threat assessment and incident management. The PathoCERT technologies are actually going to be tested in 6 different locations. So we have Amsterdam in the Netherlands, Limassol in Cyprus, Sofia in Bulgaria, Granada in Spain, Thessaloniki in Greece, and Seoul in South Korea. Where we actually have also our communities of practice up and running. And so far we have organized more than 21 meetings, engaging more than 120 different stakeholders. So now we can see a video that actually nicely summarizes the project.
Every day, first responders risk their lives to help those in need. During emergencies such as floods and earthquakes, they can be exposed to several water-related hazards. When first responders come in contact with contaminated water from surface water, wastewater, or drinking water, this can pose a serious risk of illness, disease, or even death. For events like these, where first responders, and citizens in general, are at high risk of waterborne pathogen contamination, PathoCERT project is working towards strengthening the coordination capabilities of the first responders with other relevant stakeholders, such as water authorities, to make sure they are able to detect pathogens quickly and apply innovative technologies to better control emergencies. The project aims to develop pathogen contamination emergency response technologies, which include an early warning system with smart, portable, and wearable sensors for the rapid detection of pathogens in surface and drinking water, autonomous drones with water sampling and mapping capabilities, wearable devices for the first responders in the field, tools for analyzing contamination event data from satellites and social media, decision support systems for contamination threat assessment and incident management. PathoCERT has created communities in 6 countries with more than 100 practitioners who guide the development of the technologies. The PathoCERT technologies will be demonstrated and validated within pilot exercises in Granada, Spain, Amsterdam, the Netherlands, Limassol, Cyprus, Thessaloniki, Greece, Sofia, Bulgaria, Seoul, South Korea. As a result, the PathoCERT solutions will increase the operational capacity of the first responders, fasten the overall management of waterborne contamination events, and protect the lives of the citizens, as well as the first responders. Discover more about the project at the official website and social media channels.
So over the 2.5 years that PathoCERT has now been running, we have actually been able to collect many learnings through the ongoing stakeholder engagement and the various community of practice meetings. So through the very intense exchange that we had with the stakeholders, actually, we have been able to identify and address several economic, political, and cultural barriers. So the countries in which the communities of practice are actually operating are very diverse. And there has been, of course, the need to integrate all the developed technologies into existing structures. And for this, the contributions of stakeholders has proved to be very crucial. We have identified gaps between the coordination and the collaboration of key stakeholders that are now being addressed also through this exchange in the communities of practice. So there they have the opportunity to kind of explain to one another what they need in order to be more efficient and more effective in the collaborations. And of course, one very important learning is the necessary adaptation of technologies for to meet the end user needs. So for this, the communities of practice have been an excellent platform where the end users actually come together and they give their feedback to the developed technologies, which is then passed along to the technology developers so that they can tailor their solutions in order to make them work in the very different local context. So because the countries, they also have very diverse topologies, they have very different contexts. So it is very necessary to make these small tweaks to the technologies that are going to be then field validated. And this, of course, so these adaptations are also what's going to increase their acceptance. So if they don't work, then of course the technologies run the risk of not being taken up. And this is something that the communities of practice actually help mitigate because the technologies are actually working in the given context. And last but not least, what has been a very important learning for us is also how community acceptance is very crucial for the acceptance of the technologies and for their integration in the operating procedures. So citizens and communities, they need to be aware of the tools that are there. They need to know exactly how they can be used and what they can bring to the communities as well. So these are a few of the learnings that we have seen, but you will hear more from the specific cases later on from Dimitris, who is running actually the community of practice in Cyprus. So this was actually PathoCERT in a nutshell. Of course, you can get a lot more information on our website and our social media channels, and we are here for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dimitra. Thanks a lot. It's a very important insight from the PathoCERT point of view, that such an experience. And now we learn from the other two projects, starting from the Ultimate. And by the way, I also wrote in the chat, but the audience and of course the speakers as well, but welcome to send questions to the speakers and panelists that will be discussed during the panel discussion. So now, I mean, as I said, I mean, now we have the presentation of the Ultimate project, which it is also one of the projects where Water Europe is proudly a partner. And I warmly invite Gerard Waardenberg to take the floor. Gerard is the project coordinator of KWR, which is the Water Research Institute, famous in the Netherlands for working in the water sector since years and producing outstanding results as well. Gerard, please take the floor.
Thank you, Andrea, for the nice words and the introduction. I hope you can see my screen, and I will continue.
Yes, please go ahead.
Let me do that. Yes, so I will give you a short introduction on the Ultimate project, following up on the PathoCERT project, and what I would like to focus on today is a bit on the project outline and on the strength of cooperation to achieving the goals of the project. In our case, circular economy goals. I was already introduced by Andrea, so I will skip that. So, well, you can read it yourself, but our project focuses on industry, water utility, symbiosis for a smarter water society. So I will explain later what that is. We are quite a big project, 16 million euros. I think I didn't mention here 27 partners, and we aim to create economic value and increase the sustainability of our water systems by valorizing resources, supporting the transition to industrial symbiotic ecosystems. And I would also like to mention that we are one of 5 sister projects that all come from the same call, which also includes water mining, which is presented later. So, and we also have some social media channels that you can click on if you have the presentation available. So the core or the background for our project is the goal of the European Commission and the Green Deal to move from a linear economy where we kind of discard our wastes into a circular economy where we aim to reuse our materials and keeping them in use, creating value chains and regenerating our systems. So obviously this is a core of the Green Deal that that the Commission is promoting, and we are happy to contribute to that, to those goals, with a specific aim at what we call water smart industrial symbiosis, which is kind of subset of circular economy, aiming at developing circular symbiotic arrangement between different industrial sectors and different water service providers, which you can see on the picture on the left. So in Ultimate, we work with agro-food sector, with the beverage industry, with the chemical industry, and with biotech industry as industrial partners in symbiotic arrangements in our pilots with water service providers, municipal utilities, etc. And we develop in our project new technologies as well as new digital solutions to optimize our solutions, to improve circular water solutions. And I don't have a video, but I have this animation which shows that we're developing circular systems within the water domain, the energy domain, and the materials resource recycling domain. And wastewater is seen as the core in this nexus between these three components. What I would like to share with you is that a basis for our project is that developing successful circular systems are not only the result of developing technologies or digital tools, but certainly also about the development of exploitation and valorization schemes, so including also investments, collaboration, etc. And certainly also about stakeholder engagement, which is the topic of today, relating also to socio-political and governance context in which we have to work, and which may be locally different and also challenging often. In ultimate, we have different, we are applying different engagement methods to work with our stakeholders. We have identified different stakeholders, which may be industrial partners, which may be the general public, and which may also be more political, technological, etc. stakeholders. And we work, for example, on co-creation, which was also already mentioned in the previous presentation. We work with living labs together with Water Europe. We work also, which is quite interesting, with so-called immersive experiences. And we work with communities of practice. And in our communities of practice, the goal is mainly to share and exchange knowledge between the different stakeholders. And in our project, we have defined stakeholders mainly as technical and political stakeholders, and not on the general public. So yeah, that's maybe something for discussion. What we already see in the project now, after almost 3 years, is that the successful application of our COPs, of which we have 9 for each of the case studies, each of the pilots that we are developing, we see an acceptance on the local scale by the different stakeholders of this application and solutions and developments in the local cases. And we also see that the solutions that we're developing, that we're piloting, are already embedded in regulatory frameworks that are being developed, contribute to advice to, for example, the European Commission or national scale. And we also hope, obviously, that this will contribute to Water Smart Society on different scales in Europe. So finally, I would like to advertise a bit on that we have a call open for a symbiosis assessment. This is for industries. I haven't seen so many industries in the previous poll, but if you would be interested in kind of free advice from the project members on the opportunities to develop symbiotic arrangements within your typical situation. We would be very interested to hear from you. So please contact us. And with this, I would like to finalize my presentation. Thanks.
Many thanks, Gerard, for the presentation and for pointing out quite a few number of important points that I think will be discussed during the panel discussion. I mean, after this presentation of the projects. And now we'll give the floor to Gonzalo Gamboa from the Università Autónoma de Barcelona and the Institute of Science and Environmental Technology, which will present the structure and the results, and say the overall framework of the water mining project, which is another project in which Water Europe plays a role. And well, I mean, Gonzalo, please take the floor and give us, I mean, insights about water mining.
Thanks, Andrea. I will share my screen. I hope you can see it.
Yes, crystal clear.
Thank you. So, well, the water mining project is the name of the project, Next Generation Water Smart Management System, large-scale demonstration for our circular economy and society. As Andrea said, I'm Gonzalo Gamboa from the Institute of Environmental Science and Technology of the Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona. So, the water mining project is led by the TU Delft, the Technical University of Delft, and we are 38 partners from 12 countries. This is an innovation action of the Horizon 2020 framework program. The budget is about 19 million euros and 18 million is funded by the EU. And the project period is from September 2020 and to August 2024. We are in 2.5 years of projects until now. So the key objectives of the project is to demonstrate through 6 case studies new and energy efficient ways of reclaim critical resources from seawater desalination from urban and industrial wastewater treatment systems. I will be more specific on this in the next slide. But also the projects aim at developing business model and mobilize fundings for these innovations, and also improve citizen and stakeholder perception. This is done also through sustainability evaluation of the system and stakeholder engagement, and also design EU and national policy and regulatory measures. So here you can see the 6 case studies, but I would like to just highlight some issues. For instance, in the sea mining, the idea is to reach zero liquid discharge and also increase water recovery using waste heat and renewable energies, thermal desalination systems, and also recover magnesium, chlorine, sodium chloride, and other salts from seawater. Then we have 3 case studies, one in the Netherlands and Portugal, Larnaca, Cyprus, and La Llagosta, Spain, Catalonia. Here, these are the urban mining case studies. The idea is to increase the water from the installation, reuse water, up to 90%. Also, recover biogas or the use of renewables for these systems, and then also recover some materials. Critical materials from the wastewater. One of them is as we'll show you, is Caumera. It's a bio-based polymer that is produced from sludge, wastewater sludge, and also recover phosphorus and other salts, magnesium and other salts. And then we have an industrial mining system that is, the idea is to, it's based on the concept of chemical leasing, and the idea is to implement a zero liquid loop of free of pollution water, industrial water. So these are the 6 case studies that are located in Italy, one in the south of Spain and in the other one in Catalonia. one in the Netherlands and Portugal, and the other in Cyprus, and in the Netherlands in the port of Rotterdam. So this is more or less the structure of the project in the case studies. What I focus in the societal, or let's say participatory achievements. I will leave the technological achievements on the side because we are just developing the case studies. I can say that one of the main achievements is that we have installed the Caumera extraction installation in Faro, Portugal, and this is the first time we extracted Caumera bio-based polymer in a warm climate. So this is the first technological achievement. But then we have 6 case studies, and we have established 6 community of practice, more than 18 meetings, and more than 100 people, stakeholders involved in these processes. Through this community of practice, we have identified values, social values and value tensions around this, the development of these technologies. And also, together with this community of practice, we have developed technical scenarios to incorporate these social values into technological development. I will go into more detail on that. We have also, thanks to the support or the interaction with the stakeholders, we have carried out a market analysis, identifying barrier enablers of the different technology, and 3 business model archetypes: co-resource recovery, reuse and recovery, and waste to resource. These 3 archetypes of business models. And also we have developed and validated 3 preliminary policy packages into the urban mining, industrial mining, and sea mining sectors. So these are the main achievements and as of today. Well, some of the main challenges and experience and how the projects addressed, or how we are addressing them. The first one is what we experienced a important increase in cost of material, equipment, transport. This is a technical, let's say technical issue. So all the cost increase in material that mainly affect the development and the construction, design, construction of the equipments and the technology we are developing. And this is a quote from a colleague. So they say, we try to save money whatever we call by simplifying design, tendering equipment, purchasing refurbished equipment, changing material, plastic instead of steel pipes. And they say it was very, very challenging, like the cost double or triple in the last years. Then another challenge was the lockdown, and this had important consequences of stakeholder engagement because we identified the relevant stakeholders in different COPs, in different case studies, but then we have to start running online meetings, and at that moment no one knew, or no one was an expert of holding online meetings. Now today is part of our daily life, but it took some time, and we solved this giving support to case study facilitators. Case study facilitators are the person in charge of dynamizing COPs, and support them in using online tools, for instance, or giving them templates or capacity building workshops, to solve or overcome this challenge. Then I will say that we are working in this is social sciences, let's say, within engineering projects. And I think, according to our experience in at least 2 projects of this sort, of developing emerging and innovative technologies, there is a low amount of human resources and skills to carry out stakeholder engagement activities. So the case study owners and facilitators are mainly people working in the technology developing, or engineers. And as an engineer, I can say that we have very limited facilitation skills when we leave the university, and also when we start working in the area. So just to give you an example, the work package of a stakeholder engagement is about 10% of the total person month of the projects, more or less, in the 2 projects I work in. Then within the technical partners, no, the people that is doing facilitation within the stakeholder engagement activities, the person months is about 40%. But at the end, we have about the person month for facilitators is about 1 or 3 person month for the whole project. And we have calculated, no, that is minimum required to do this facilitation task. It is needed no less than 4 or 5 person month in each case study to perform an adequate and or to carry out good practices of stakeholder engagement. So I will say that there is still a low amount of human resources and skills to carry out these activities. So this is very, very challenging. So we need to give constant support to people that is not experienced or they don't have the skills, and maybe they don't have to have the skills, no, for facilitation or stakeholder engagement activities. Okay, so, well, here we were asked to say how the project can contribute to a water smart society. The project is trying to develop circular water management innovation to decrease the use of resources and also to recover critical materials like phosphorus or magnesium. But in this sense, no, the COPs and the project, no, this is the technological fixes, but we think that most importantly that we can highlight the fact that technologies development is just a piece of the puzzle. Human behavior and consumption patterns are key in reaching water smart society. There is the rebound effect. We increase efficiency in our technologies and then we end up increasing consumption. So it is really necessary to reduce consumption. And then also in this interaction with the stakeholders, some ideas have emerged that when we recover materials from the wastewater, and when we desalinate water, the idea will be to avoid, not to substitute the resources we are using right now, but not to provide complementary resources to keep increasing consumption. The role of COPs, I will say that it is very important to identify this space to exchange knowledge, but also to identify social values, value tensions, and uncertainty, and to be incorporated in early design, development, and implementation of innovative technologies. In society, we have a contradictory and legitimate values. No, so it will be good to incorporate these different value tensions within the technological development. And also the COPs are being a good tool to explore market barriers and enablers, as well as to define and validate policy measures to upscale innovative technologies. So the role of COPs will be knowledge exchange, awareness, and social learning. So that's from my side. Thank you very much. Stop sharing the screen.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. Excellent presentation. A lot of very interesting and important points that I think that will be well discussed in the next session, which is now. I mean, the next session is about entering into really the live aspects of the community of practice. For each and every project for which now we have really how we can develop the synergy, how we can develop the diversity, how can we use diversity in creating added value for the project being engaged in research, innovation, pathway, and environments. But now I would like to have the help of Rosalind.
Yes, thanks very much, Andrea.
And I would like, Rosalind, to introduce the next speakers, and after the 3 projects, we're going to have the plenary exchange and the panel discussion, and that will be moderated by you. So thank you so much for your contribution, and well, let's go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yes, so as Andrea said, this section is about synergy and diversity. So really understanding what do these projects have in common, how they use this method, and what can we learn from each of them, what brings them together. So we'd like to start with a short presentation from each of the projects, going into more detail about the environment and the experience of using this community of practice methodology. So we'll start with the PathoCERT perspective, and I'd like to hand over to Dimitris Iliadis to give us a presentation on that.
Thank you, Rosalie. Just a moment. Okay. Okay, great. So I think you can see my screen.
Yes, we see.
Okay, so good morning, everybody. My name is Dimitrios. I'm the technical coordinator of PathoCERT. As Dimitra said, it's for pathogen contamination emergency response technologies. Now, before going into the details, I wanted to show a recent post from Associated Press. It's with respect to what's happening now in Turkey. You have seen the devastation, of course, and we're all shocked about this, especially as this is happening in very close to where I live. Despite in addition to everything else, the people there, the survivors, as well as the first responders, are facing with a very critical challenge, and that relates with the availability of clean water system. So you see that also here in the aftermath of earthquakes. It's possible to have this type of events. So why am I saying this? Because essentially, different parts of the world are experiencing different events in a different way, and it's impossible for one country and one group of first responders to be aware of everything. So this is why research that we are conducting as part of the Horizon program, let's say, needs to be aligned and needs to be able to provide actual solutions to the stakeholders we try to help. So from its inception, PathoCERT was based on the needs of first responders. We went and talked with first responders, and they gave us actually feedback on what they had in mind on technologies that would be useful for them. So by doing this, we made a very ambitious we designed a set of ambitious technologies. And of course, as part of the program that we got the funding, we are supposed to demonstrate, to test and validate the technologies in the field or in training by the first responders. So this motivate us to actually establish very strong communities of practice. Communities of practice are communities of experts, essentially, people who have, as it was mentioned earlier, a piece of the puzzle in the whole spectrum of managing emergency response and managing events. So we managed to collect experts in different parts of Europe and beyond. And the idea of the COPs is to provide feedback to the research and development teams. And essentially, the research and development teams are developing something. We show this back to the communities of practice. We get feedback. And in full disclosure, it's not always, let's say, enthusiastic, just because, engineers know how to invent things, but first responders are the ones who are going to use these technologies. So we need to have this feedback loop in order to align what we design as engineers and inventors with what the actual needs are. And of course, this is going to be validated in the field, and we will get more feedback, and this will propagate again another round of this feedback flow over here. So at the same time, the actual pilot exercises are going to be designed as part of the COPs. So this is also very critical, because we are talking about technologies that the first responders are instrumental in their design and influence their design, and in the end, they will use these technologies on the field. So they know these technologies already. They have given feedback on this. So it's we try to minimize probability that one technology will not really be fit or totally out of scope. Now, in addition to this, we're also conducting a social study as part of the COPs that is going to help us in understanding the perceptions of the first responders, gender-related issues, and others. So we also found that this was a good synergy. As was mentioned before by Dimitra, we are organizing 6 COPs, and we're going to organize 6 workshops in these 6 COPs, in the 6 countries, and also 3 European COP meetings. And this is, in a sense, to collect, to gather all the stakeholders from different countries and try to see whether we are able to aggregate some information at the European level. Now, we're very happy because we have involved more than 120 first responders, and the number, I have to say, it's increasing all the time. And in many cases, we have managed to gather the key people who would be involved in managing a waterborne contamination event. For instance, in Cyprus, we have managed to get all the people that, one way or another, if there is one problem that is related to water and waterborne pathogens, the key people in Cyprus are now meeting together, and I'm going to say a few more things about that. And this is something similar happens also in Thessaloniki, in Sofia, in Amsterdam, in Granada, of course, etc. So this is a platform where people exchange knowledge, experiences based on their reality and their background, and we have heard a lot of stories, a lot of horror stories in some cases, and we're using this knowledge to drive the technologies that we develop. And in the end, even though all of these are in different countries, we all try to address a common challenge. So this is a key issue for all of us. I'm going to show a few photos and say a few things. For instance, this is the COP in Granada. Here we have both the civil protection of Granada as well as the Water Authority of Granada, closely collaborating in designing a scenario that relates an earthquake that causes some damages with wastewater infiltration, both in the water reservoirs and in the drinking water system. And at the same time, first responders need to make some rescue missions. So throughout all of these COPs, we identified a number of scenarios that were not very much explored by different civil protection organizations throughout Europe, because of course sometimes they have to deal with the first priority, of course, is the earthquake or a fire or something else. But as we saw also as I motivated, it's the next thing that's going to happen is something that affects the survivors. So that's still a critical part, and it happens during the time where first responders are actually operating. Here you see in the Netherlands. So it's a different problem, it's a different challenge. Here the COP tries to solve the problem of determining the source of a contaminant occurring within a water distribution system, which could be due to an accident or due to a malicious attack. So we use a lot of these tabletop exercises to figure out how the first responders and how the water operators would behave, and what would be their priorities and what they would want from a system that would help them in making these decisions. Also in Bulgaria, this is the Ministry of Interior. I mean, this is the top level of operations in the country with a lot of experience, a lot of protocols already in place. And here we are actually discussing challenges that are a flood-related event based on their experience. This is something that is discussed, and a very interesting scenario has been designed by the COP here to investigate search and rescue and this potential of contaminants. In Greece also it's a flooding scenario with missing people. Again, this is with the Hellenic Rescue Team and the Water Authority of Thessaloniki, EIAF, closely collaborating to design again also a scenario and see how these technologies can be applied to manage using drones, for instance, and fast sensors that analyzing the information. And this is Cyprus, the Cyprus COP. You see on the table that we have maps. So we're using a lot of interactive workshops to collect information and experience, both from the people in uniform, let's say, the first responders, the fire service, the police, but also the water authorities, the wastewater operators, and actually in Cyprus, we have gathered around 20 organizations. So actually, these COPs are always very populated, and they are always very highly. It's acknowledged by all the participants that what we do there, everybody feels a sense of duty that we are doing something that's going to be useful in case of a crisis, of this type of crisis. That the right people will be able to manage these type of situations. As I already mentioned, in all of the COPs, interactive workshops are organized, as well as online tools, questionnaires and interviews, using maps and post-its as you would have expected, but also this simulation exercise to see what would happen and what we would like to use. And here, based on what we heard, for instance, this is a lake. We got the feedback that this map should also show at which points we can go close to the lake, in a safe way, so that we can get water samples. So we are learning about things that we are not, as academics, or researchers, we are not aware of, and this is actually something that's going to be quite is useful and is added to the technologies. Now, if you will allow me, I'll just show a very quick video of an event that happened. Okay, so wrapping up. So what we saw was the latest COP that was organized, in which we demonstrate the technologies to the first responders. The first responders came, they played with the technology, and they completed questionnaires to give us feedback that it was further processed to improve and go to the last mile of the technology. Now, in answering the question of how the COPs can contribute to the transition, so first of all, by exposing the first responders and water authorities to these innovative technologies, we give them a glimpse to the future, and this has been, of course, recognized. But also it helps these COPs, this meeting, this discussion, they help the first responders and the water authorities to better understand what is missing with respect to technology, the policing gaps, and their needs, and of course understanding better the limitations of the technologies and the technology readiness level. But essentially, the COPs are I believe that they are an inspiration and guide for this digital innovation, aligned with the Green Deal and the digital transition towards also for more resilient societies. And through this, they also understand what they can procure with respect to through innovation or pre-commercial procurement. In the end, of course, we want to go from the COP, which is now an information hub, let's say, to a collaboration platform, which I think is what we are now, into a wider service towards the government, the local government, and of course, afterwards, the EU. Now, some of the challenges were finding a common language between the first responders, the water authorities, and the knowledge organizations. I have to say that it took us a couple of meetings in order to start synchronizing what we were saying, because there was people coming with different backgrounds. It's like that image with the elephant. Each one sees a different part of the elephant, but they cannot understand what the animal, which animal is it. Also, another challenge is that each country has a different set of procedures, priorities, stakeholder types, and hierarchies and experiences. So it's not easy in the beginning to exchange knowledge. However, because everybody is trying to solve the same problem, in the end, things start to synchronize in the end. And another challenge is to be able to communicate the technologies to the first responders in a really unbiased way, to elicit useful feedback that is actually feasible and can actually improve the designs. Because usually inventors are really excited with their technologies, and this is not always, people are nice sometimes, but we really need to be sure that what we get is useful. So actually, we got this type of feedback from the first responders by saying that, for instance, we had this technology with a glove-based technology for testing water, but the first responder said, we prefer if it's a stick that I have in my pocket, I take it out, I do the analysis. And actually, you saw this in the video and in the animation, and it's actually one of the things that everybody wants to try now, because it came out of the request, let's say the strong request from the COPs. Now, for discussion, I just want to raise a few points: how we can use the COPs as enablers to transfer and enable policymaking, especially in relation to emergency management. How to make the COP sustainable even after the end of the project, and keep the experts engaged. And more ambitiously, I have to say, how to retain this network of experts and actually enable it when actual events like the recent events occurred, how we can employ this to support in a European international scale. So these are from my side. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Demetrios. Some really interesting insights there, and seeing practically how this has worked. I'm sure lots of questions to follow up. Just a reminder for everyone, if you do have questions that you'd like to ask the different projects, please do add them in the chat, and we will try our best to get through them in the discussion. So now we're going to hear from the ultimate perspective. So over to Raul Glotzbach to tell us a bit about how it's worked in that environment.
Yes, thank you, Rosalind. You see my screen, correct?
Yeah. Yep, I see it.
Yeah, so thanks again. Welcome, everyone. As Rosalind mentioned, my name is Raul Glotzbach. I work with KWR Water Research Institute, which is based in the Netherlands. It's the same institute as Gerard, who presented earlier. I'm involved in a number of EU projects that are implementing communities practice, but for this purpose, I'll focus more on the experiences in the Ultimate project. Yeah, so as Gerard already explained, Ultimate aims to create economic value from wastewater and increase sustainability within the water cycle. So seeing the role of wastewater as a reusable resource, but also as a source of energy and materials. So it's within this context that we're developing technologies and strategies which we want to evaluate and demonstrate across 9 case studies, which Gerard already mentioned, representing 4 industrial sectors. So the agri-food sector, the beverage sector, heavy chemicals, petrochemical, and also the biotech industries. And to ensure the successful uptake and acceptance of these technologies and strategies, we see that the active engagement of stakeholder groups to co-create is a necessity. And so the communities of practice are part of the approach within Ultimate to bring the relevant stakeholders together to interact regularly, exchange knowledge, develop ideas, and learn together. And so in this way, we look to ensure that the knowledge and technologies and solutions which are being developed within the Ultimate project are capable of addressing the complexities that we see in these symbiotic arrangements, and also ensures that these technologies and solutions are acceptable to end users as well. And in fact, in one of the strategic objectives of Ultimate, which you see on the screen there, the 5th one, we're aiming to for active stakeholder engagement and innovation co-creation with the purpose of designing, promoting, and accelerating business transformations to water smart industrial symbiosis. And among the many activities that we're engaged in to engage different stakeholders, which Gerard also mentioned in his presentation, are the communities of practice. Yeah, so what we've done in a bit around the ambitions of the communities of practice is we've guided the case studies within the project through a general approach to prepare and implement their communities of practice. However, what's important is that we understand the need for the flexibility to ensure that the design and implementation of the communities of practice align with the local circumstances. So therefore, we take a bit of the role of assisting the case studies find the right way to implement their communities of practice, through supporting them through that process. And as such, the ambitions of the communities of practice and also their structures essentially defined by each of the case studies with their stakeholders, and that's also an important element. But then within the context of the Ultimate objectives and the grander scheme of a water-wise society. And again, in this way, we ensure that the communities of practice are bottom-up driven, they're locally relevant, flexible, as I mentioned before, but also non-disruptive to existing stakeholder engagement structures that might exist already in those specific regions. The ambitions of the case studies and the activities within their communities of practice help to then embed water smart industrial symbiosis, so the term which Gerard also presented earlier today, through this co-creation process where solutions for the reuse of water, but also energy and materials are discussed amongst the different stakeholders, and also a further discussion on, for example, the technologies, the system governance arrangements, and business models, as well as the finance mechanisms that are in play as well. In terms of looking ahead and how the communities of practice can sort of contribute to these different transitions in their role in research and development, within Ultimate, what we've done is provided the tools to build a good foundation for the communities of practice and for them to continue to develop to ensure their relevance and effectiveness for engaging stakeholders. And part of that process, and I think we've heard it also in some of the other presentations, is about receiving feedback from the stakeholders to measure their success, so the success of the communities of practice, both in terms of their output, but also in their functioning over time. And this evaluation is based on a scientific approach, which you can see on the screen, looking at a number of key success factors. We're hoping that through these findings and also understanding the experiences of case studies, it can provide us with useful insights that can then be applied beyond the project, or insights, for example, for this green and digital transition, but also in terms of the transition to a more circular approach, and so forth. So looking at, for example, the appropriate stakeholder engagement methods, what should we do or what should we not do, that can then effectively contribute to these transitions and the uptake of new innovations and technologies. And as I mentioned at the start, so I am involved in a number of EU projects implementing communities of practice, and a number of these projects are actually a part of this CIRSO Water Alliance, which Gerard also mentioned before, in which both Ultimate and also Water Mining, which Gonzalo will present again later, are a part of. And within this framework, there are a number of working groups, one of which is on stakeholder engagement. And we have these regular meetings, and one of the things which we have agreed is to organize a joint workshop where aspects on continuity of the and the role of the communities of practice beyond the projects will be addressed. And so there's an abundance of experience on the do's and don'ts, both on process, but also on how or the way that they're organized, what they discuss, that we feel we can provide concrete recommendations to inform future EU projects on the implementation of communities of practice as a means to engage stakeholders. And what we want to also do with that knowledge is to also develop a scientific paper focused on stakeholder engagement. Just very quickly, I just wanted to show you some sort of insights that we have across the different case studies in the communities of practice. The first chart on the left is just to show that the size of the communities of practice vary across the case studies, but also over time. So it's a process, and that's also an important aspect. So over time, you are increasing the number of stakeholders that you're engaging with and identifying who are the relevant stakeholders to engage with. The chart on the right shows the overall perception from the stakeholders, where in most cases across the case studies which have held their community practice meetings, they see them as very valuable, if not extremely valuable, mechanisms to engage and to contribute. In terms of the main challenges, just a few, and there are many, but so I just wanted to highlight some of them. Around stakeholder commitment, which is quite variable across the case studies. This has also in part been a result of the pandemic and having online meetings, so the engagement is often quite minimal compared to having physical meetings, but also the struggle in getting all relevant stakeholders or stakeholder groups to engage in the community's practice has often been challenging. And as I mentioned before, what we try to do to address this is to remind the case studies that it is a process in which case studies are learning and adjusting to get the commitment from their stakeholders. And also we encourage that there's continued engagement with the stakeholders to demonstrate the value of the community's practice. So sort of giving that, if you miss out on this meeting, then you're missing out on something quite big, to try and sort of provoke them or get them excited about being part of this community of practice. Another challenge which we've seen is on the feedback, which is across some of the COPs in their meetings is quite low. Partly, survey fatigue, so people are not really keen on doing so many evaluations. So sometimes this might not give a very clear reflection of or reflection from the stakeholders within the community's practice. And what we try to do is to encourage the case studies to find ways to improve on the response rate, for example, on the evaluations, such as dedicating time within their meetings for the evaluation, and emphasizing the importance of such feedback from the stakeholders for the implementation and organization of these communities of practice. And then just lastly is on this balance between project needs and stakeholder needs. So within, for example, the Ultimate project, and I'm sure also with PathoCERT and also Water Mining, there are quite a few demands that we have within the project in terms of reporting, monitoring, evaluation, and so forth. And for a lot of case studies and also for stakeholders, they don't really understand the importance of it, so it can be quite overwhelming. So it's also trying to find that balance. And what we try to do is continue to monitor that situation also with the case studies and discuss with them appropriate steps to ensure a good balance between what we require from the project, but also the specific needs of the case studies and their stakeholders to ensure that the communities of practice function in an effective way. At this point, I would like to invite Chiara. I saw she also popped into the meeting to share the experiences from our Italian case study. Chiara?
Hi everyone, thank you all. Thank you to everyone. My name is Chiara Cosenza and I'm working in ASO, that is Water Municipality, and I'm collaborating on Ultimate project with the Aretusa Consortium, Università Politecnica delle Marche, with assistance, and Consorzio Polo Tecnologico Madonna. As said, there are many challenges to a successful COP. As a case study, we have already organized 3 COP meetings and a living lab meeting with Andrea Rubini and Water Europe. The main purpose of the
Oh, I think Chiara's frozen.
Yeah, I see her also frozen.
Are you still there, Chiara? Chiara, maybe if you try without the video, it might work. Then maybe Raul, shall we go back to you for a second, and then if Chiara is able to rejoin, then we can come back.
Yeah, so I have really just one slide, which is more on the discussion points, and maybe if Chiara pops back in the discussion later, she can also share a bit more insights on the Italian case study. I see she's dropped out. So I think it's quite similar also to what Dimitrios was also sharing in a way, and also I think what some of the discussion points were already provided in the agenda. But looking at the continuity of current communities of practice beyond the lifetime of EU projects, so how we can embed the approach within perhaps existing structures or new structures after the project ends. Also leveraging the experiences and of the communities of practice, also looking at the structures and how we can use that in future EU projects, but then also looking at how we can share these concrete messages, if it's recommendations on communities of practice to EU projects, what is working, what is not working, to ensure they're effective. And so that also circles back to the point which I made about within the CIRSO project or CIRSO Alliance, with the different partner institutions, the sister projects, we are looking at how we can learn from each other, how we can put together workshops to come to some sort of joint recommendations that we can bring forward to the European Commission in the way that they structure EU projects and how they engage with communities or with stakeholders through, for example, communities of practice. I'll leave it. I don't know if Chiara in the meantime was able to come back, but if not, then we can leave it there, and then she can perhaps share insights in the discussion.
Definitely. So we'll bring Chiara back in when she's able to join again.
Yeah, perfect.
Thanks very much, Raul. Again, some really interesting insights and lots to discuss after the last presentation. Last but not least, we're going to go back to Gonzalo Gamboa to hear a little bit more about the COP experience from the water mining project perspective.
Thanks. I think you can see my screen.
Yep, we see it.
I will share with you my, well, thanks. I didn't say that before, but for inviting the water mining, but not just to share our experience, but to learn from yours. That is very interesting. When we met with Raul in other projects, and I think what he said is very interesting, to start sharing experience and develop a common approach to this COP framework. So why we establish COPs and what is the purpose and function of COPs in water mining project? Well, first, we developed a value-sensitive design process. The idea of this value-sensitive design is to consciously incorporate societal values into emerging technologies, which many times are overlooked by technology developers and engineers. So we are blind, in developing this technology, we are blind to the context and stakeholder realities. So this value-sensitive design process has 3 steps, broadly speaking. So first, the setting is set. We present the case study to stakeholders. Through different participatory approaches, we identify the relevant values, value tensions, and uncertainties regarding these technologies. And then, based on these societal values and value tensions, we build some technical scenarios, 2 different scenarios incorporating these societal values and value tensions. So we have these different scenarios, and we evaluate these scenarios, and we give the results of these performances of the scenarios to stakeholders within the COP meetings, and get their feedback, and we look for, for suitable and adequate scenarios. And in this way, we run in parallel this participatory process to the technology development process, so we feed each other. And the aim is to incorporate societal values into emerging technologies, but we are in the context of an European project that is aimed at developing this technology. So this incorporation of societal values is done as much as possible, within the pattern of technological development. But also the COPs are the space, as said before, the space to prioritize, for instance, indicators for the sustainability assessment, to identify market barriers and enablers, and also to devise some policy measures and regulations to foster the development of these technologies. So this is more or less the COPs are the space in which knowledge is exchanged between technology developers and the society, and the work package in charge of these responsible of these stakeholder engagement activities. We play as a bridge between society and technology development. So considering that we are in the context of European project action, innovation action, I will say that Raul slightly touched this issue, this tension between the COP objectives and the objectives of the project. I will say that the ambitions of within the project are not ambition of the COP, but the project and case study ambitions, because we are in the context of developing certain technologies, solving specific projects. So theoretically, COPs are informal settings that rise from the bottom up, and they are based in the motivation of the members. Also they last in time due to the motivation of the members of the COP. Theoretically, COPs are based on situated learning. So they are characterized by a common trait, professional practice, or working condition of its members. In fact, listening to the previous presentation, specifically the PathoCERT presentation, COP is conceptualized in as a expert group, a group of experts to deal with a specific project. So this is based on situated learning and the similar professional practice of working condition of its members. And I will say that if we read the definition of COP, it does not explicitly consider value tension and conflicts, or the existence of legitimate and contrasting values in society. So according to all of this perspective, I will say that in our project, we are working more with goal-oriented community of interest rather than community of practices. I'm not saying that communities of practice are not useful. They are, we can see in other projects, but the concept is a bit different, and from these differences, we can identify some differences. For instance, a goal-oriented community of interest is aimed at meeting specific needs or solve specific problems and are carried out within a project. also it explicitly consider different states, different perspective to the same problem. There are expert and non-expert, but if we acknowledge the existence of traditional knowledge, we can also call them experts. So we have experts of the different fields, academic and non-academic, let's say. And it takes place the phenomenon of the symmetry of ignorance. So I will challenge the issue of this common understanding of an issue. I will say that there is no common understanding of an issue if we aim at including a diverse, a wide range of stakeholders. So this is a challenge, how to meet all these people together with different understanding of an issue and different perspectives. So we frame this in the frame of participatory research for technological innovation. In any case, we have 6 COPs and there are uneven ambitions within the COPs, mostly defined by the project and the case study partners. So we have some COPs that include a wide array of stakeholders, while other things that people will be interested in participating in a project. So it is more an expert group, or group of experts. So that we have very diversity and low diversity. And we have some community of practice or partners that would like to sell the product and obtain social acceptance, while other partners look for a full involvement of stakeholders to exchange knowledge. So it is interesting thing that an interesting thing here is that I found that some technology developers or engineers, people think that when we increase participatory processes or when we increase the amount of information, we will get social acceptance. And this is not the case sometimes. Sometimes we increase the information, but social acceptance decreases. So we have to also deal with this issue of social acceptance. But COPs have contributed to the project, as I said before, in the process of value-sensitive design, incorporating or developing different technical scenarios to evaluate the different technologies. We have carried out a market analysis and developed some business models, and also the policy packaging process. So in order to develop all these tasks within the project, the COPs have been very, 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 very informative and very useful. This is an issue that has been commented before as well, that it's difficult to think or envisage a COP beyond the project. If we consider them as goal-oriented community of interest, they are led by project partners. It is not bottom-up. So when the project finishes, then how we keep this enthusiasm and motivation within members to keep the COP alive. It is focused on a specific technology or problem when we are working within a European project. So how to make the problem more general, rather than a specific, let's desalinate water with thermal energy. No, let's make about water availability or water distribution, fair distribution. So how to scale up or make the issue more broadened. And there is low or no funds to continue the COP beyond the project, as they are led or dynamized by the project partners. When the project finishes, there is no one that promotes the COP. So it's quite difficult to think or envisage COPs beyond the project. Then what is the role of COPs? Here I will use the 3 distinction of participatory approaches. The instrumental approach to participation. So here we give more and better information. So then no, there is the issue of social acceptance or even rejection of a project. So just to inform the public or stakeholders about the developments. There is the substantive approach to participation. So here the role of COP is to appraise complexity by having the perspectives or different perspective of a project. So this is the only way we can appraise the complexity of emerging technologies to including expert and lay knowledge, or I would say expert knowledge, but traditional knowledge, academic knowledge, technical knowledge. And then there is the normative part. So we can raise awareness in part of the society. This is the role, because all the people that is participating in this project, in this COP, is getting more information, and they get different perspective, and they realize, and they experience processes of social learning, and also, and this is part of our work package of stakeholder engagement, is to evaluate changes in behavior between among stakeholders that participate in COP. So these will be the roles at different levels of the COPs. The challenges, I already mentioned this, is low human resources and skills to facilitate stakeholder interaction, mostly in engineering projects. So we have a constant support from the work package of stakeholder engagement, preparing materials, templates, carrying out cross-fertilization workshop, and also giving some good practices recommendations. This is a challenging task. Then there is, I will say that there is time constraints to set up a robust and long-lasting stakeholder engagement scheme. We start the project and we have 6 months or 12 months, 1 year to set up the project, to set up the COP. So you have to identify stakeholders, present the project. So it's very, I would say, short time to when you first give the recommendation or the guidelines to the project partners within the first 6 months, and then you have 6 months to set up the COP, is quite a few time. I will say, for instance, that there are other approaches. For instance, the Living Lab approach, they take at least 1 year, but the Living Lab is not within a European project, but is aimed at long lasting. So I would say this is a challenge. In any case, I will say that when all the experience we are getting are collecting from the different projects, maybe we can improve this process of establishing COPs and make it more easy to run. And also we will need more people with the adequate skills to do this sort of task. And then another challenge we experience in this project is the contradiction between confidentiality and stakeholder engagement. Sometimes we have 2 cases that we are developing very innovative technologies, and there is a lot of issue for patents, new developments, work in the labs that we cannot make public. So it makes more difficult to exchange knowledge with the stakeholders, because these confidentiality issues limits in some way, for instance, development of technical scenarios. We cannot develop different scenarios for 2 case studies because we cannot make this information public. So this is a very challenging issue. And some questions to discuss afterwards, or just to food for thought. This is how to overcome the lack of human resources and facilitation skills in engineering projects. Maybe giving more funds to the social sciences within the hard sciences. Then another question is the COP framework able to deal with legitimate and constructive values in society? And will technology developers, engineers realize that participation does not equate with higher social acceptance? And the last one is how to transform a goal-oriented community of interest into a community of practice. So I think That's all from my side, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Gonzalo. Again, really interesting insights there and a good overview of the challenges and how you started to overcome some of them in your project. So now we move into the discussion phase. I see also Chiara has managed to join us again. And I think one interesting theme that's come out of all of the presentations is thinking about the future of the community of practice model in each of the projects. And one question I think it would be good to start with is to understand what difference has using the community of practice model or method had on the networks between these key stakeholders in the project at the local level? And I think, Chiara, if we could bring you in here to start with to hear a bit more from the Italian example, that might give us some insights to start with on that idea of what impact it's had on those stakeholders.
Yeah, thank you. We have more than 20 different stakeholders organizations attended to the same meetings, divided into research institute, water industry, authorities, municipalities, and users, and so on. This plurality of participants characterization represents a great opportunity for us, thanks to a multi-perspective approach to knowledge production, but it also could be a potential obstacle in terms of opposite interests between the stakeholders. So we discovered that it's a good way to do COP meetings with the topic, and then the stakeholders can enjoy the topics that they interested more. So it could be a very productive meeting, and the COP can give us results for the project, for us, and also for the stakeholders. Because I mean, I think that it's the most important things that also stakeholders can be can have some results of these meetings, not only us as project or as partners. And about our, for example, about our experience, I want to share one thing. On the third meeting, we talk about the social perception and national regulation about material use. And from that started an interesting round table. And then after a few months, developed in a one-to-one meeting with us and one of the stakeholders. And from that one-to-one meeting, we found an important solution about our case study. So the solution arrived after a few months, but the source was the COP meetings. So for this, I want to say again that COP meetings are a great opportunity for us, for the stakeholders too. And if you want some more details, please ask me. I'm here for that.
Thanks very much, Chiara. And it's really good to hear that practical step that's actually come out of the meeting in terms of the impact as well. I wonder, Demetrios, maybe you can share from the PathoCERT perspective as well, what impact has that had on the stakeholders coming together, and also maybe thinking towards the future? A question that came up across the presentations is what happens next? If the project ends, is there a way to integrate that into existing networks and so on?
Yeah, thanks, Rosalie. So with respect to the impact to the stakeholders, I have to say that first, let me just clarify that in each country there is like a different model that is being applied with respect to the COP. So let's say there are no two COPs that are the same, let's say, that are organized in the same way for many different reasons, and some reasons may be because of the the ability to organize them in a specific way, as Gonzalo mentioned earlier. You need to have different people organizing it. But on the other hand, it's a type of, as I said also in my presentation, it's a different dynamics. So we have more structured, let's say, meetings, and we have more workshop, more free type of meetings. So and there is no really one one answer. This is the best. What we have tried in Cyprus is because it was a very fertile ground, let's say. So we actually managed to get everybody on board, and it was an experiment because we didn't know how people would actually react. But because we had the strong support of the Cyprus civil defense, and they were invited to this event. So first of all, everybody had a sense, felt that was participating in this event with a sense of duty, if I can say this. So everybody was motivated, and what we tried to do is we tried to bring realistic scenarios from the beginning. So I think we had a story, and everybody was thinking about the same story. So essentially, everybody had a different background, but we had the same story. Like it's like a movie script, let's say, and everybody was building on top of that. So this helped us in discussing and understanding, how different perspectives, how people from different perspectives were viewing that. And I will have to say that this seems to have worked. In addition, we also tried to formalize the COP. I mean, make specific, even some details like having specific files that people are populating all the time with new information. So this is also helping in creating the sense of a group. Now, coming to the second part is what I said. Essentially, this takes me to the second part. I think it's critical for these COPs, especially to maintain these COPs for many reasons, because it seems that they are working, and also it seems that the people actually want and they find it useful to be in those COPs and contribute. I think ideally this can start. Okay, of course we have the project, etc., but the ideal would be to try and formalize this, to put this as part of one entity or one organization. This, of course, is a policy issue, so we would need to go and discuss this with MPs and ministries and discuss and raise awareness about this. I'm talking about at the national level, of course, because that's one way of sustaining it, with the goal, let's say, of producing suggestions and policy suggestions for the national and, in the end, of course, to the European Union. Now, this would be a basic step, a first step, but I think maybe it's a first step that we need to do in every country in order to be able, before reaching at the European level. But I would like to hear also opinions about how we could do this top down from the European Union down.
Thanks very much, Demetrios, and also bringing in that policy angle as well, and the implications that this can have on the policy sphere in different fields is really important. Raul, do you want to come in here with your suggestion?
Yeah, no, I think I just wanted to circle back to a remark which Gonzalo had made about the ambitions are very much focused on the case studies or the project and less so on the community's practice and the stakeholders. And I think that's in itself also a challenge in terms of the continuity, because they're very like topic specific, project specific. And so when the project ends, then it feels like naturally the community's practice will end with that project. And so it's about also, I guess, looking for that balance between the ambitions from the project, but also having the stakeholders sort of define what their ambitions are as a group as well moving forward. And it can be sort of on the theme or the topic, for example, circularity or something which is quite broad, that they then fit into other more specific topics as well. And of course, over time they grow. Or maybe it's also about, I don't know, cataloging or finding a way to, keep a list of, these are the different communities practice which have existed because of XYZ projects, that you can return back to such lists as well. And of course, there's the challenge with GDPR and data protection and so forth. But maybe there are ways or mechanisms at the European Commission level where they can keep that sort of information that you can always refer back to it. So when they're coming up with new projects or the new proposals coming in, that they can say, hey, we have this community of practice which was established under, for example, Ultimate on industrial symbiosis. Perhaps reach out or tap into such a network to see how those can continue. And I think also the reference to the living labs is these broader networks in which these communities of practice can also exist is maybe some way to also look at it. But it's the challenge of making sure that they don't die after the projects, which might be a natural thing that happens. But it's also about then keeping the momentum going, finding the ways to engage those communities of practice beyond the projects. And that has to be, in my opinion, a bottom-up driven process. So you need the excitement and the energy from the stakeholders to want to do it. So they need to see the value for it themselves as well. Otherwise, it becomes too project pushing this idea forward. And once the projects are done, then the COPs also stop.
Thanks very much. I think it's really important to think about from the different sides and different levels and where the interests are. In a second, I'd like to bring in Dimitra, and we're also joined by Stefania here as well. Just very quickly, Gonzalo, did you have any other further thoughts? I know you raised this issue of how to keep the continuity and so on. If there's anything you'd like to quickly add on that.
Well, as of today, we are just learning about how to improve it. We have just one case study that they are becoming a living lab, and they have the different community of practice under this umbrella, but then it's a public institution. So here, the willingness to have this structure of public engagement, this is one issue. And then it is a very special issue. It's about water in a water stress zone in the south of Spain, where they produce the vegetables for the whole Europe. So water is really important there, and people really wants to learn and find a solution for water provision to agriculture. So there are special situations and specific characteristics that makes that the members are very motivated to participate and to keep to have a participatory structure lasting in time. And there is also the willingness of a technology developer to have this symbiosis between different sectors, water irrigation communities, farmers, authorities. So there are all ingredients to have this, but then you have other projects that are totally different, and when you have confidentiality issues, so it's the opposite.
Yeah.
So I think we are learning, we are sharing experience with Raúl, Stefania, and the sister projects, how to deal with these issues and how to motivate and make them long-lasting.
Definitely, and it's that piece of the jigsaw puzzle, trying to fit it to different contexts. Moving on a little bit, I think thinking about the future of the kind of model, and one of the challenges that was raised quite a bit is how to integrate this kind of more social side, this kind of facilitation of this process into quite technical projects. And I wonder if we could go over to you, Stefania. It'd be great to hear your thoughts on the kind of the future movement of the community of practice model, but also maybe incorporating a bit of that insight into how to integrate that well into these technical projects.
Yeah, hi. Maybe perhaps just a couple of words of who I am. I'm Stefania Munaretto. I work with Raúl and here at the KWR Water Research Institute, and I'm involved in COPs in different European projects together with Raúl, with Gonzalo, and in the sister projects as well on stakeholder engagement. Yeah, I think I wanted to make 2 points. One is that we also need to be and remain always aware and alert of the fact that communities of practice are not necessarily the solution to be applied everywhere, in every context, and with the same format. So we have some examples in which the way we want to structure them, because we have the requirements from the project, of course, we have to deliver within the project, and therefore we want to establish this community of practice in all the projects. But in some cases, this structure simply doesn't work because there are already existing stakeholder engagement structures, and then it's better to work with those existing initiatives at local level. So to really work in a bottom-up fashion to avoid disrupting the local structure, and embedding COPs in local structures since the beginning is also a way to ensuring continuity later on. So that's one way. So when in the beginning of a project, we think of establishing COP, I think it's also important not only mapping stakeholders, but also mapping existing stakeholder initiatives. And coming back to what Raúl mentioned, there might have been experiences with other projects or community of practices. So if there was some sort of a repository or an inventory or something that we could tap on and say, okay, well, These are networks that have already been established, are existing, or they are maybe dormant at the moment, but could be reactivated to start from there before putting a new structure there. And coming back to your question about, more the how to embed the social aspects and social dimension in such technical projects, it's indeed a challenge. And it's a challenge of, it's a process of getting the technical experts understand and learn how to handle and to deal with these social processes. So, of course, we can, as coordinators or support these processes, but ultimately is the local partners who have to implement the community of practices. And very often they are technical people. And I noticed that often there is a little bit the tendency to underestimate how much time and effort is needed and expertise is needed to organize and run these meetings. So it's also part of our job to help more technical experts to organize and to run these meetings. But in general, what I notice, and I think Gonzalo also mentioned that earlier, is lack of the social sciences, so the soft skills expertise for stakeholder engagement, in particular in highly technical projects. It's often a very small work package, a very small group of people, but ultimately it's the local partners, the case study leaders who have to implement, and they also often don't have these more social science experts. So that's something to definitely keep in mind.
Thanks very much, Stefania. Lots of interesting and good tips there. Dimitra, it'd be good to hear your thoughts on this as well, as you've been working a lot on kind of supporting the local partners to implement this. Do you have any other thoughts to add on how to integrate this in technical?
Yes, so I think that this is, I think that Stefania and Gonzalo already, and Raul, they already touched upon the common challenges that we're all facing. So indeed, especially this underestimating of time, effort, this is a big challenge for us, and we've seen it not only when implementing COPs, but in general when implementing any stakeholder engagement format. And I think that this is something that is now slowly starting to shift, because I remember, I have been working on different European projects. At first, it wasn't, stakeholder engagement was not even mentioned in the text calls. Now it is already starting to be mentioned, but it's still being treated as just another box to tick, just to have a successful proposal. So I think that what is important is to actually, yes, relay the message that, yes, it's a lot of effort, it's a lot of time. And I think that this is something that needs to be communicated very openly from the very beginning of the project, that bringing basically the local implementers at the same page and telling them what will it take, how many resources. So being very concrete about this and very open and honest. And I think that this lays a very good basis then for the project afterwards, for the engagement to actually happen in a more effective and meaningful way. So I think that open communication here is key. And before going to the stakeholders, it's the internal stakeholders that we need to take care of. So the project partners that need to understand what needs to be done. So here we need the common vision. This is for sure. Even if within the communities of practice or within any other formats, we don't have this shared vision and we have the different perspectives, I think that it's very important that the project team has a shared vision. And from then onwards, I think that all the other challenges can be tackled more easily, more smoothly, so to say.
Absolutely, really, that importance of the internal communication and coordination. I'd like to tackle one of the, related to a question that's come in the chat, which is about, obviously we have this really difficult situation with the earthquake that is happening at the moment. One of the things to talk about here is about synergies between projects and coordination, and how this can really help address challenges in the real world, things that are happening right now. So I'd like to bring in from the kind of project coordination perspective as well from Demetrius and Gonzalo, and perhaps Gerard, you'd like to input here as well. What do you see those synergies being, and maybe in the context of the earthquake, but maybe in other challenges? Is there a way for projects to come together through this, maybe a network of communities of practice? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so we already have an experience on this during COVID. So a lot of projects back then tried to kind of restructure a bit their efforts in order to kind of synchronize a bit with what was happening back then. Of course, now we're talking about an even, it's very tragic, of course, and we've communicated that already in Turkey. I would say that I believe that we have a role, because in the end of the day, we are all, I mean, here we are experts. We are maybe we managed to get some very large funding from the European Union. This is money of the public, right, and are being used for a good cause, of course, for research and for innovation. And I feel that if we have the opportunity, and it's possible and it's relevant, of course, to align what we are doing in research and kind of synchronize with the current challenges of the society, that would be really ideal. Of course, within there are some boundaries. Of course, we are not. I mean, there are some limitations. I mean, boundaries. I mean, but in any case, I would say that, and I believe that, well, at least this is how this happened with COVID. The commission was, the project officers were supportive, let's say, in case of crisis, to make adjustments for the project. So I would say that it's not unreasonable, and I would say that if it's relevant, I would really be much in favor. Because just to say that, for instance, using drone technologies, there are already some sensors available that can be used. Maybe they are not at the level that that we would like them to bring them, but it's something that we have right now. So it's not the best. It's a lot of, it's still research, but I would say that so it's something that we should investigate, and I would like to discuss this as well with the work package leaders, at least in PathoCERT, to see how we could actually be at service to the European Union on this.
Thanks very much, Demetrius. And Gerard, do you have any ideas on these synergies to add?
Yeah, so I think it's a very relevant question. I noted down a few things. So obviously, PathoCERT can really deliver, let's say, equipment that can potentially be used for these kind of crises. For our project, it's less the case. Nevertheless, I also noticed with COVID that the Commission is willing to, let's say, give us space to let's say to follow, let's say, reality a bit. And I would be very much in favor of giving projects, and possibly also new project, more flexibility in what we do, and because we see that we are somehow also approached to contribute to crisis, whether it be Turkey or in Ukraine or COVID or whatever. And at the same time, we have this strict contract which binds us to delivering what we promised. So that feels a bit uncomfortable. I think that's something we need to argue towards the Commission from our projects, that our experience is that we are very willing to, let's say, use a bit of flexibility. Regarding what we can contribute, I would say that any project should look for opportunities. So obviously one project is more suited than other projects. Regarding Ultimate, I would say that what we are developing are new ways to deal with sustainability, with water issues. And although, and clearly the focus is now on let's say, on the people in the region and their development, it has also affected water supply, as was shown by Dimitrios in the beginning. And I would be very much in favor if Europe would promote that a future water supply that's being built up again in that region will use the latest insights regarding, for example, circularity, and also businesses that are being put in place again get access to the latest developments in Europe, even though they may have not been involved in our projects. We should give them that access. So we should have, we should be willing to share our experiences also with authorities in Turkey, and also later on, hopefully, in Ukraine.
Thanks very much, Gerard. Gonzalo, from the water mining perspective, how do you see these synergies and implications for kind of tackling these common challenges?
Well, as mentioned before, we are now within the project, we are just on the one side, we are looking at the current frameworks, for stakeholder engagement. We are also reviewing other frameworks, like participatory research for technological innovation. So in order to make this link, and also to improve what we are developing now, what we are implementing now, this community of practice. So to link with the hard science or the technology development. I agree with the issue mentioned before, that the skills we have different case studies with people that is very capable in what they do, but there are lacking of some social engagement skills. We are not in the moment to say what will be the proposal. We are looking for instance, we think that the issue of increasing the amount of funding, it is true what Dimitra said before. Before we haven't talked about participation in engineering projects, we are just including this community of practice, but maybe the ambition will be to have a minimum amount of money allocated to these social engagement activities, in order to make to meet all the ambitions, that we can inform the public, but also we get the information from the stakeholders, and also we can build a more informed society to change behavior and so on and so forth. So now I was just making some numbers here that we have calculated that for social engagement is at least needed 4 person month in each case study, and this is huge change in current budgeting processes. So, and then if you talk about, we need to subcontract people that is specialized, they know the local language, they know the local customs, they know the local, or existing experience, of stakeholder engagement or other schemes that are already present in there. So just subcontracting, and you say, no, we have to subcontract one company or that is specialized in facilitating within each work case study. I think now is not acceptable yet, but we think that we have to go in that direction in order to and then to create this sort of to have more, I don't know how to say it, but to value more this part of the stakeholder engagement and all the knowledge we can get from there. There is a lot of knowledge we are not getting or incorporating in the technology development process, but there is a sort of a hierarchy in knowledge. The academic knowledge is here, and then all the traditional knowledge is down there, but then when we go to talk with the people, we learn a lot, about their experiences. So I think it's very, very important, not just informing people, but also learning from them. And this needs a sort of to be willing to accept, not to be criticized. For instance, when we are developing technologies that we will save the world, but so we have to be willing to accept critics. Maybe the path is different than what we are envisioning in our projects. I don't
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Gonzalo. I think that's a really nice note to kind of bring this discussion to a close about thinking about how valuable the contributions can be from the community of practice model into those technology developments, and of course linking with the policy and the wider implications, and how these projects can really contribute. We're ending the time slot that we have for this, so I would just like to do one final question for all of the speakers in a very quick fire round. In one sentence, what is your top tip that you would give to somebody who would like to use the community of practice model in their project, in their context? Do you have one top tip? Maybe we can start. Any volunteers?
I'm happy to go.
Great, go for it, Raul.
Yeah, I think it leans a bit to also what Stefania was mentioning before. So I think for me, at least, what's key is flexibility, especially in terms of the process of organizing communities practice. And part of that is also about looking at the local context to ensure that that what we're introducing is not being disruptive to existing structures. So if there are existing stakeholder engagement mechanisms, avoid competing with that and see if there's synergies there as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Who would like to share something else? Dimitris?
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, so I liked what Raul said, but also in addition to that, so empathize with the people that are coming to you and try to engage them as much as possible by using, not by just delivering, just by communicating information, by disseminating information, but actually engage communication through interactive workshops. You need to think of nice ideas and nice exercises to do, and people will become more engaged, and give them space to speak. Don't be the one talking. You have to be there to listen, but try to ask those specific questions that will cultivate all of this fruitful discussion.
Stefania?
Yeah, I would like to add, take the time to build the community, because building a good community is finding the right people, like understanding the context. It's half of the work. It's not about having 50 people and maybe they're not the meaningful ones or the right ones. It's about having the right people, even if it's a small group that is committed, that is interested. And for that, it takes time. So also when we write project proposal, make sure when in timing the process to remember that especially the setting up of the community takes a lot of time, and to make sure to have that time. Because you also first have to get to know the project partners, to understand the case studies, to help them understand the stakeholder engagement process, and then help implement it. So yeah, that would be very important.
Thank you. Final chance here for any other top tips. Gonzalo, Dimitra, Chiara, Gerard, anything else? And Andrea, I see your hand as well.
Just a point about the sustainability of community of practice, because it's a core issue and a challenge that all projects experience. Before or after, it's a problem. So from our perspective, from your perspective, and being, also being the promoters and fostering the establishment of water-oriented living labs, which are permanent. I don't say entities, but structure of territories, and where there is the participation of the citizens, the participation of each of the stakeholders is important. And I think that the water and labs can really use the big experience gained by the projects, in building the local communities in order to have, an added value in building up, the structure for the quadruple, the quintuple helix of the future innovation in Europe and beyond Europe.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Andrea. And then let's have a quick fire round from Chiara, then Gerard and Gonzalo.
Just a few words. I think it's really important sharing in the COP. I think it's really, really important. Just
Thank you. Gerard?
Yeah, also maybe something that was already mentioned, but maybe in my words. I think anyone starting a COP or stakeholder engagement in broader sense should be open for the outcome. So we should not have strict goals that we want to achieve, and by using this group of people, we should give them the freedom to speak and the freedom to contribute with whatever they think is relevant, because it's relevant for them. So that's what I would like to add.
Perfect, thank you. And Gonzalo?
Thanks. Well, I will add to that what Stefania said, that take time. It is better to build something good than something fast, but also be clear on the steps and also start early because you need time. This is one. And then I think it is very important to be transparent in the objectives of the case study and take care of the expectation of the people that is participating. So expectations are different from the project and from the people, and it is very important to do that. And the last one is to meet commitments. If you commit to deliver a report on whatever, please do it, because people is, no, we are, it's like we are not playing with people. It's like we have to take care of these spaces of public participation.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of our speakers here today. We've heard so many interesting examples, interesting tips, interesting insights, thoughts on the future of the COP model. I think there are lots of questions that will be as follow-up, so I'm sure the projects wouldn't mind if you reach out to them and continue the discussions between the projects and with others as well. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone. There might be some more specific questions, but I'm sure you can follow up with the projects directly afterwards. And then I will hand back over to Andrea.
Thank you very much, Rosalind. Thank you very much, all of you, for your great contribution to Water Project Europe on community practices. Now, I mean, after so much discussion and so many concepts and experience, we like also to address our attention and to the audience and to get, I mean, the feeling, I mean, on the event of today and about community of practice. So we prepared another poll for you. So I'd like to invite my colleague Gaia Zanzi to share the screen, and please, I mean, enter the code or point your mobile to the QR code to enter into the last poll. So let's start with the first question, with the first slide. Now we just ask you, I mean, to express many keywords that you use to describe the outcomes of this meeting. Well, the cloud is coming up. I mean, it seems to be very much interested in clouds. But at the center, we have useful. So it means that it's inspiring and interesting. It becomes excellent as well. I find it interesting also that you have this concepts about communication, about synergies, understanding of needs. So there are a lot of inputs from the audience about their feeling, I mean, of this event today. Shall we go to the next one? So this is, I mean, it's up to you. It's a choice that we ask you, I mean, to make your choice. I mean, what do you think that is the most important role of community of practice? I mean, it's pretty open in terms of playing a role, but please let us know, I mean, what you think about. It's very much interesting because there is a very strong perception that there is the need for co-create, co-manage the change for the achievement of the smart society. So it means that really, I mean, the community practice can really play a very important role over here. So I mean, I think that all the points are important. I mean, starting from to allow public acceptance of the innovation, but I think that the message is pretty strong. So it means that there is the need for the engagement, I mean, a strong engagement of all the actors of the innovation process of our society. We need to support, co-create, and co-manage it change, because what we have in front of us, I mean, it's a dramatic change, it's a paradigmatic shift of managing our water resources for the achievement of water smart society. And I mean, Rosalind, I would like, I mean, to hand over to you once again the floor for the final comments. And I know if there's anybody else who wants, I mean, to give.
Thank you very much.
Sorry. There was, I mean, it was a third slide. Yes, it was about in the future, because I mean, I think that this has been a very interesting and very inspiring event about community of practice. And we'd like to ask to the audience, what would you like to discuss in the next Water Project Europe on community of practice? All these inputs will be included in the report we are going to develop after Water Project Europe, and that we will share then, I mean, along with other information and the presentation of the event. But I mean, a lot of things. I mean, it will be difficult to find, I mean, one topic for the next Water Project Europe on community of practice. So I mean, I think that's there's a lot of things, I mean, to be seen, I mean, in the future. And please, I mean, Rosalind, sorry for before, take the floor, I mean, for the last comments and takes away.
Thank you. Yeah, lots of interesting ideas there as well, and touching on some of the discussions from today. I think it's been so insightful. We've heard lots of practical experience, not only the good things about it, but the challenges and how the projects have worked to overcome those. And I think that's a wealth of information for anyone wanting to develop or continue to use this model going forward. It seems that there are really good opportunities in terms of bringing these different thoughts and ideas and experiences into the development of technologies, into coming together, strengthening networks between organizations and key stakeholders to really apply that to challenges that are very real and on a scale that can be best tackled together. And then even a level beyond that, thinking about the European level and even on a global level, thinking about how these projects can then work together, develop those networks and really apply the outputs of projects together. So I think those were some of the key insights from me. I'm not sure if any of the other speakers would like to give their sort of ending power message on their takeaway before we finish. Anyone, or maybe you can.
Yeah, just to say that I think it's imperative that any technology that we develop needs to come from the stakeholders. So it's I think the COPs are not just an issue that the Commission is trying to promote, but I think we should all, especially people, engineers in specific, you should realize that it's a key enabler in whatever innovations and technologies we develop.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Any other final remarks from anyone? Otherwise, I think we've all got lots to think about, lots to take forward, and yeah, let's continue the discussions. Yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all for your great contribution. And I mean, once again, I mean, I think we really got a lot of great insights. Thank you to PathoCERT, thank you to Ultimate, thank you to Mining for this live contribution in this event. And I think that really we are going to have a lot of things, I mean, to share in the coming days. And thank you for all your great work, I mean, done, I mean, at community or practice level and beyond that. Thank you so much. Thanks. Thank you a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.